Alright, welcome everybody to the Just Out Here Tinkering YouTube channel. I'm Brandon, and I'm going to give you just a basic idea of what goes into swapping out a fork on the Schwinn Boundary Electric. There's two different routes that you can go. There's one route that I would recommend you go for ease of installation, but it's not the route that I went in the end. So basically, the initial upgrade that I made from this completely steel 10-pound Schwinn branded fork here is I went to this Bucklos 120 mil travel air fork. And this one I just went with a straight steer tube. Now, you can go with a straight steer tube, you can go with the taper. If you do go with the taper, you're going to need two things to accommodate that. So, this is the upper headset, and that's going to be a 44 by 28.6. And you're going to need, technically you don't need the upper and the lower, or the upper headset, but I would recommend changing it. And then this is the lower. It's a ZS 56/40. So the reason I would recommend upgrading the upper and lowers is this is the type of bearing that they're using for the headset. That's the upper one, the lower one is over there somewhere. But it's just not good high quality bearings. Eventually you're going to have an issue with it. It's not sealed, so dirt. I mean, I just put the new tire on. Actually, that tire. I put the new tire on and greased everything. You know, everything was good. And one ride, maybe two, it might have been two, and there was dirt and stuff all over in those bearings. I mean, that's headset bearings, let alone when we get to the wheel bearings. But so dirt is going to get inside those, as opposed to the bearings from this company, Fun. They're sealed bearings, so your dirt's not going to get inside the bearings. All of this is just smoother. I mean, I wish I could kind of get you guys to feel this, but I don't know if it's really. I mean, you can hear that. And just when you feel it, it's just not, it's not buttery smooth. It's not what you want your bearing to feel like. So basically, if you're going to do a tapered Bucklos, you're going to do the 100 millimeter, and it's going to be slotted like this. So you're just going to slot your axle into there, tighten it down, off you go. You will have to trim this down, which is not that difficult. You also have to install a star nut. I highly recommend that you get the tool for that, which I think is right here. It's honestly not that expensive, this tool, and it worked perfectly, and it came with one star nut. Now, as for moving to a taper, in order to move to a taper, you're going to have to knock out these upper and lower cups. Now, there are tools for this as well, but what I found worked perfectly fine for knocking those out was this little hammer and this chisel or punch or whatever. So that worked just fine. That got it out. Getting it back in, I have seen some people have issues with it. I know Kev Central had to bring his to a bike shop because he couldn't get it to align properly. What I did with mine, which worked out pretty well, I put just a very light layer of grease on the portion right here that's going to slide up into, come on, focus, that's going to slide up into the head tube. And then I got it seated on there the best I could. You kind of got to finagle whatever you got to get a nice spot for this to like be steady and sit up on, rather you put it on a stand or a 4x4, or I mean, I use this little chair here, but, and then this block onto the actual race that you're going to be pounding in is a, you know, kind of a buffer, so you're not damaging it, and also you're getting even pressure more or less. And then I just beat it in with the sludge, and honestly it did not take that much effort, or I mean, there was really no fighting. It just went right in, probably 5 good whacks, and then I just kind of went even with the block, and I went around all the edges and just kind of made a circle to make sure everything was seated properly. And I mean, as you can see, that is the cup right there on the top, and that's seated nice and flush. The bottom one you can see is seated nice and flush. So that is what you're going to have to do in order to move to a taper. If you're going to do the straight steer, technically you can reuse all of the original cups, bearings, everything can be reused. You just basically unbolt this top cap. You're going to unbolt these two bolts here for the stem, and as soon as you do that, that fork is going to want to fall out. Obviously you're going to have to take your caliper off. So speaking of calipers, the other thing that I did have to do, I don't know exactly what size this rotor is. I guess we could find out. Let me grab. Hopefully this goes high enough. I don't know if it does, but we'll find out. Let me get my calipers extended. Yeah, it should go far enough. Nope. All right, so that's 155 millimeters, and we're to there. So, I don't know, it might be 180. I suppose I could just measure it in inches with a tape measure, but the problem I ran into was that with the original spacers that they send, I don't know if they're over here. There's little tiny spacers that they send with, like, already installed on the bike for the brake caliper, and they were not sufficient. Wish I could find them, but here we go. So they had these little spacers here to space the caliper back to give clearance to the rotor, but there was not enough clearance because the original fork, you had an adapter to bring you from, yeah, here you go. There you can see the adapter right there. So this one mounts sideways, and then you have the adapter, and the adapter brings it further back. So these new forks, they don't come quite as far back. I know it, I mean, it looks like it sticks out pretty far, but when you look at them side by side, see if I can get these lined up here. The old one just sticks out further. So you've once again got a couple options here. You can try to find some spacers online. You can just get some washers and stack them. I don't entirely recommend that. The route I chose to go, because I have the tools and capability of doing so, was I just machined myself a little aluminum spacer. So I figured out how much space I needed, and just so you guys know, in case you want to do this exact thing, the spacer's 12 millimeters. So a 12 millimeter spacer, and you're going to need two of them, one for the upper, one for the lower mount. And then these two 12 millimeter spacers are what you're going to need in order to make the caliper clear and not contact the rotor. So, I mean, it seems kind of complicated, but it's relatively straightforward, especially if you go with the straight steer tube. That's what I did initially, and I kept the original bearings and all that. Now that I've moved to the taper, it was a little more complicated. The other problem that I ran into is this is the original wheel, and this is a, I don't even know if there's necessarily a name for whatever this standard. It's just a bolt with these washer, like this is like a nut and a washer built into one, and those are squeezing over some just loose ball bearings. So basically there's apparently one in each missing on mine, but I think there's supposed to be 9 and I had 8 in either side. But yeah, there's 8 little bearings just kind of rolling around in there in some grease, and this is what kind of cups them on this side to allow this to rotate. I mean, I just cleaned this out and you can see it's already kind of crunchy. So the problem is that the RockShox fork that I've moved to, the RockShox RC3 29er, it's 140 mils of travel. This shock requires a 15 millimeter through axle. So this wheel, or at the very least this hub, is not going to work to go onto that fork. So temporarily I'm going to go get a new wheel today actually, but I took the wheel off of my Specialized Camber Comp, which is a 27.5, so I unintentionally made this a mullet, which I don't want and I don't like. But I just wanted to kind of give that a test to make sure that, you know, my handlebars and everything felt good and were at the proper height. So it's a little more complicated if you want to go to that RockShox. You're going to need a new front wheel, or I mean, the other option would be to completely unlace this wheel, remove all the spokes, replace the hub with a 15 by 100 millimeter through hub or through axle hub, and then you could relace a new axle in there. But I'm really not sure that I recommend. I mean, it's up to you, honestly. It's a lot of work. Lacing a wheel is not impossible, but it's not easy. It's a pain. So I think I'm just gonna go down the route of getting a whole new wheel. I would get a whole new wheel set, but I don't know what's going on with that. I mean, that's obviously not a standard hub. So if you ever have an issue with this back wheel, you're gonna have kind of some problems. I mean, you're potentially just gonna have to unlace. Hopefully the hub is still good, the hub motor, all that, but you're gonna have to unlace that rim if you happen to dent the rim or something along those lines, bend a wheel or something. But yeah, that or get a whole new hub motor, which is, I don't know how much that is. So the rear wheel is going to be staying as it is. I'm going to be getting a new front wheel. I'm actually going to go do that right about now, and then I'll come back and I'll show you guys the finished product with the spacers and the caliper all installed, and we got our new stem. I did not put on the new handlebars yet, or the new seat, obviously. I'll get those done. But because this stem, I bought this used, and it was cut for a Specialized stump jumper, 2014 model. And you're not going to be able to see it. Oh yeah, you can see it. So that's with absolutely no spacers, and it's just barely making it into that top cup. So honestly, I would really prefer that stem be just that much longer. But we're gonna try it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, then I have an idea. I know they say these are not, once you cut them, you're kind of screwed. You're stuck with what you got. It's not entirely true. Getting that back to the way it, or, you know, extending it is far more difficult. Sorry, my air conditioner is kicking on. Far more difficult than cutting it. But I cut a piece off of that bucklose fork, and worst case scenario, if I have an issue with that stem slipping and not wanting to stay on properly, I will have to TIG weld the that I cut off of here and extend that one, and then, you know, make sure it's nice and smooth and perfectly aligned. But that will give a little bit extra travel, or a little bit extra space, I should say, to attach the stem. The other option I've seen where they have like stem extenders, I don't know what that's actually, if that's for this purpose or if it would work for this, but I honestly like the height of the handlebars where they're at. So we'll see what I can do, but worst case scenario, I think I may end up just going down that TIG route, but I'm really doing one of these hoping that I don't have to do that. So I'm gonna go get that wheel, I'm gonna swap out all the rest, and then we'll be back on the next video to show you the finished product, and hopefully maybe I can get some riding footage to show you guys how this thing handles and how it takes on the trails. Thank you very much for watching.